Today, we're exploring Dún Laoghaire Harbour in Ireland, an asylum harbour built to save ships from deadly storms. Celebrating its 200th anniversary in 2017, this massive structure transformed Dublin Bay forever. We'll look at its origins, the brilliant minds behind it, and how it was built against the odds. In the 18th century, Dublin Bay was a sailor's nightmare. A massive sandbar blocked large ships from the River Liffey, except at high tide, and during storms, there was nowhere safe to anchor. Hundreds of ships wrecked over the centuries, with devastating loss of life. The small village of Dún Laoghaire, back then called Dún Laoghaire, began as a fishing spot sheltered by granite headlands. A sandy bay and a stream made it perfect for beaching boats. Rock's 1757 map shows the village, the bay, and an early pier, likely the one built in 1759 under Charles Valency for £18,000. Twice its current length back then, it sheltered fishing and coal boats. By 1813, surveys recorded a Martello Tower and battery guarding the bay against Napoleon. But Dublin's port problems persisted. Bold schemes were floated, canals, massive seawalls, even a link to Dalkey Island, yet none took hold until tragedy struck. In November 1807, disaster. Two ships, the Rochdale and the Prince of Wales, were wrecked in a gale. Nearly 400 lives were lost. This tragedy sparked action. Dublin shipbroker Richard Toucher began campaigning for a shelter pier east of Dún Laoghaire Old Harbour. In 1809, he published a pamphlet arguing against Howth Harbour, which he claimed was too far for storm-trapped ships. Instead, he proposed a 1,500-foot pier costing £20,000 to be funded by Dublin port levies. Toucher's plan showed an extension, 1,000 feet north, then 500 feet northwest. A refuge from storms, not a port. His efforts led to an 1815 Act establishing commissioners, who hired Scottish engineer John Rennie, already famous for works like Howth Harbour and the Royal Canal. Rennie, a master of harbour engineering, chose a site just east of the old harbour, where deeper water gave the best chance of safety. His 1816 design was ambitious, a 3,200-foot pier projecting 1,500 feet out, then angling twice by 45 degrees with a small inner projection. It aimed to protect over 230 acres of water from easterly gales. Compared to Toucher's modest plan, this was grand and expensive. Granite was quarried at Dalkey and brought in by a tramway called the Metals. The team included Rennie as consultant, John Aird as resident engineer, Richard Thomas as assistant, George Darling as secretary, and Toucher himself, appointed stores master after bankrupting himself campaigning for the harbour. Preparation began in 1816 with Marine Road and the tramway. In May 1817, Rennie shifted the site slightly east to avoid rock hazards but keep optimal depth. On May 31, 1817, the Lord Lieutenant laid the foundation stone, a moment celebrated 2 centuries later by President Michael D. Higgins. Construction was monumental. Loose granite rubble, some weighing over 4 tons, was tipped into the sea from wagons running down timber frames. Winter storms helped settle the mass into place. Diving bells, an innovation Rennie borrowed from Smeaton's earlier designs, were used to position massive stones underwater with precision. The pier's structure featured a sloping glacis, a 1-to-5 slope to absorb wave energy, rising to a parapet wall with 2 internal roadways. Unlike Howth's narrow single road, Dún Laoghaire design was broader and stronger, 300 feet at its base. To save costs, ashlar facing was abandoned. Instead, rubble walls were bound with mortar from on-site lime kilns. Large squared stones paved the glacis. By 1818, concerns about silting from bay currents, like those that created Bull Island, led to the idea of a second pier. John Aird first proposed mirroring the east pier. Rennie instead chose a western pier enclosing the old harbour and sandy bay. Together, they would shelter 150 to 250 acres. Work began after the 1820 Act, with the east pier already extended to 2,150 feet for deeper anchorage. But in 1821, Rennie died, aged 60. Without him, the project faltered. Admiralty officials halted work in 1824, worried the 430-foot wide entrance was too narrow. Alternatives were debated: branches, extensions, even a breakwater like Plymouth's. Rennie's son defended the design, and by 1831, work resumed. Changes followed. The pier ends were rounded, steps were added for boat access, and bollards were installed for ships. Though meant only as a storm refuge, the harbour was already becoming a port. By the 1840s, the piers were complete. The east stretched 1,350 metres, the west 1,550, each with granite lighthouses guiding sailors. The glacis was designed to withstand 15-foot waves driven across a 114-mile fetch. Costs came in lower than predicted, but the achievement was immense. One of the largest harbours in the world at the time, it sheltered hundreds of vessels from storms, though ironically, some ships wrecked on the very piers built to protect them. By 1825, packet boats were using the harbour, carrying mail and passengers. Imports like bricks and slates poured in, fueling the town's growth. Today, it welcomes over 1 million visitors a year for walks along the East Pier, sailing and leisure. The harbour saved countless lives, boosted Ireland's trade, and became a national landmark. Its rubble mounds, diving bell techniques, and sheer scale influenced harbour construction worldwide. It faced challenges, funding fights, design debates, and storms. But it endured, a monument to human ingenuity. Today, the harbour is mostly for leisure, ferries, and heritage, but its role as a place of safety remains vital. In an age of climate change and fiercer storms, its legacy as an asylum harbour is as relevant as ever. From a medieval fishing bay to a global engineering icon, the harbour is a lasting tribute to visionaries like Richard Toucher and John Rennie. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into this history, leave a comment. What's your favourite harbour story?